Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Robert Pratt, welcome to the Center of the Universe. Really appreciate you driving out tonight.
Well, it's my pleasure, Paul. Enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, I've been looking forward to this for a while because I talked to Coach Kemper a few months ago, and I've been corresponding with him lately because I was trying to get him on the podcast. And I asked him who he could connect me with that would be really good on the podcast, and he immediately said you.
Well, Dick is a heck of a guy, and what a great career he had. And, he was our coach, and then he trained with me. Well, he trained me when I was playing. We used to run, and we used to run a lot. And I think, he ran for 30 or 40 years distance, and whale of a person, and I'm sorry he just retired from being head of the ILS.
And he's 83. Kept going until he was 83. Yeah, it's
amazing. He's
got a lot of energy, a lot more energy maybe than I have at age 53.
Yeah.
So what are you up to these days?
Well, I have a golf course, Sycamore Creek Golf Course, that my partner and I built 30 years ago. Well, really 32 years ago. We've been in operation 30 years now. And I'm trying to kind of wind down a little bit, trying to find someone to take over. But, when you've been doing something for so long, it's hard to retire. And plus, my wife says, you're not staying at home, so you better get your ass out the door and go somewhere.
Got to get up and do something.
There's no question. You got to do something. But I play golf. I love golf. I got into mountain biking about 5 years ago with a real good friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
It's not, we ride over Pocahontas State Park.
Okay.
Fabulous place if you like to ride. They have 22 trails, all skill levels. And we check our egos, when we get on that bicycle, because you can
really mess yourself up.
You can screw up.
Yeah.
You can screw up. And we take a fall occasionally. We don't tell our wives, but we do take falls. And luckily, nothing serious. And but it's exhilarating. It's a great workout. We do an hour and 10, 15 minutes, and that's all we need to do.
And you're doing that every day?
No, hell no. We do that twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week.
Okay, yeah.
We like to play golf a couple times a week and ride a couple days a week and recover the other days.
You're living a good life.
Yeah, it's not bad. Just you got to keep your health, man.
You got to keep moving, too.
You got to keep moving. You can't let the old man in.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, yeah.
It's true. There's no question.
Very cool. So you grew up in Richmond, and you and I were talking a couple days ago, but you were born not in Richmond.
Right. I was born in New York, outside New York City, because my dad was 25 years old, just finished law school, and he and my mother were living in New York, and then probably when I was 1.5 or 2, they moved to Richmond because that's where she was from, and became a lawyer down here.
And they always knew they were going to move to Richmond, you think, after you finished law school?
So.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
So you consider Richmond home?
No question.
Yeah.
I've been here every year but a year and a half, so that's what I consider. Especially I talk like someone from Virginia. No one can understand me half the time anyway.
I can understand you.
Okay.
Well, what part of the city did you grow up in?
I grew up in the near West End. I can honestly say I have lived my whole life within 3 miles of where I first started living. In that Libyan Grove area.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Right there.
It's great. You get used to it, and people say, "Do you want to move out in the country?" I said, "Yeah," but everything's give and take. You move out to get to peace and quiet and some space, and you got to drive further. If you live in town, you don't get what you got out here. Everything's given. You can't have it all.
That's why you need a river place.
Yeah,
everybody needs a river place.
Yeah, either river or somewhere you can just get away. You know, if you got something in the mountains, isn't bad either when it's 98 degrees in the middle of a Richmond summer. But Richmond's been great.
How much has it changed since
Oh, my
since your
goodness.
childhood?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, that's ridiculous because, I mean, you judge it by how you can get out of, make a left turn on the Carey Street at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is next to impossible now. But back in the in the day, there was obviously no traffic.
Right.
It's changed a lot. I mean, Parham Road was the end of the universe when I was a kid. There was a golf course, par 3 golf course, right a little bit west of Parham and Broad, and you thought you were going into
Different
into
country.
the country. And then you had was it Franklin Farms is right there where the Kroger Center is on Three Chop. That's where we used to go buy eggs. There was a farm there, Franklin Farm.
Right.
So everything grows. Everything, it's just the way it is.
And you said you grew up in the near West End, but it was actually just the West End back when you were growing up,
It
right?
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's expanded, but some areas, they still look alike. There's some great neighborhoods. We live in a great neighborhood, and I call it a neighborhood because everybody's friendly. They talk to each other. Everybody walks. And a lot of times in this day and age, people don't even talk to their neighbors.
Yeah, it's weird.
They don't. They don't know who their neighbors are, or they're a pain in the ass to talk to, or they're liberal or conservative or whatever that you don't like. And but we have a great neighborhood, and everybody gets along. Although I'm starting to be one of the older people in the neighborhood. They're all young now, but it's all good.
Yeah, right on. All right, so when did you know you were going to love sports, playing sports? How old were you?
From the very beginning.
Like basically after you could walk kind of thing?
Pretty much. I loved all sports, and we played every sport. I was lucky where I grew up. We were one of I think we were the third house on the street. And so there are empty fields everywhere. And we'd play baseball, we'd play, football, not a lot of basketball, but it was mainly football and baseball. Baseball was huge. I loved baseball as a kid. I played on a little team called the Rossay Rebels, which is a neighborhood a little bit, it's right before you could go across the river by Poe White Parkway, is Rossay Circle. And we had a little team, and I could give you 1,000 guesses, and you would never guess who our coach was. You never know. Anyway, Justice Powell from the Supreme Court.
I knew he was from here, but come on.
Well, Lewis Powell was a classmate of mine at St. Christopher's, but his dad was Justice Powell. And obviously he wasn't a justice back then. He was a lawyer, head of the ABA. But we were 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and he was our coach. And we'd play, 5 or 6, 7, 8 games a summer. I love baseball. Baseball was my love as a kid.
What positions you played usually?
Usually left field.
Okay.
That's all I can remember. I wasn't any good at pitching.
Yeah. Did you when you hit? Did you hit for average or did you hit for power or both?
I hit for both.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's fun hitting the
I
baseball.
I could hit, and I was fast. I've always been fast. But baseball was fun. It was just, just like kids. We'd ride our bike over to the field, with a bat and our glove with us, and we'd practice. It's just iconic growing up, in a good neighborhood, where you could do that kind of stuff.
When you did you go to K through 12 for St. Christopher's?
No, I went to collegiate.
Oh, I did not know that.
I went to collegiate. My parents sent me to collegiate. It was called Collegiate Country Day School.
That's right. Yep.
And they only went through the 5th grade. And so they sent me out there. I had to take the bus, and which was cool. And then they built the middle and upper school when I was there, and so I didn't really excel in the classroom out there at collegiate. because it was brand new.
Right.
And I didn't do anything. It was all my fault. They had good teachers, but I didn't really apply myself. So my parents said, well, you're going to St. Christopher's where you're going to have to apply yourself. And that was a rude awakening.
So you went there in 6th grade?
Ninth grade.
Ninth grade.
After the 8th grade in at collegiate.
Okay, right on. I had no idea that you went to collegiate K through 8. So, well, hold on. So you played baseball at St. Christopher's, obviously. Was Ackerman your coach?
No,
Jim
Dave
Ackerman?
Boney.
Dave Boney was your coach? I had no idea he was a varsity baseball coach.
Greatest coach I ever had. No, I won't say it like that. What a great coach. He thought it was like being in the pros. He never gave you any instruction. I mean, it was hilarious. And you'd sit there and you'd take batting practice, never give you a tip on how to hit a curve or what to look for. You just played.
Just swing away.
And we had some good players. As I said, Lewis Powell was a good pitcher. He pitched. And we had good hitters. We had a good team.
Yeah.
If we would have had an Ackerman or Tony Semendera or someone that coached, we would have been unbelievable. But it was fun.
Well, Ackerman won like 3 out of every 4 years when he was coaching.
I mean, we always had winning records. We would go, 11-7.
Right.
Where we had the talent to probably go, 14-4.
Right.
But who knows? It was fun. It was a great experience. Boney was a great coach.
Did Boney teach European history back then?
Yeah. That was one of my he was my favorite teacher.
Did he tell stories at the beginning of class every day?
He'd dress up. I mean, the stuff he did, he can no more get away with now than a man in the moon.
No way. Yeah.
I mean, the stuff they used to do to us, hitting us with well, I guess I probably shouldn't bring all that up.
Statute limitations probably passed.
Well, they used to hit us with, boards. If you misbehaved, you'd have to bend over, and old McVeigh would give you a swat, man. But it was all good.
Yeah. No. Well, it worked.
Yeah, it worked. That's right.
And he was in that giant classroom. The entire 9th grade class was in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same thing when I rolled through there. Yeah, he was awesome. He had the drink machine right there as you walked in.
It was a good experience. It was good. St. Christopher was fabulous. Good school.
Oh, I have no regrets going there. Yeah, I went there 8th through 12th grade, and it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Yeah,
no question.
So you obviously played football. What were you playing in the winter?
Basketball.
Okay, so you played football, basketball, baseball.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Which did you love the most? Baseball?
It started off baseball, then I really liked basketball, and then football was obviously natural because I was large, I was big, and I had some speed. And I remember when I was a sophomore, Coach Herzog, who was the head coach, and Dick Kemper was the defensive coordinator at that time, Herzog took me and this friend of mine, Bruce Marshall, and he took us up on another field and said, okay, y'all going to race. And whoever wins the race is the starting fullback. So we had to race twice across the field, and luckily enough, I won. So he goes, "You're the running back, Robert." So that's how we did it back then. But yeah, and then we had good coaches in football. Herzog was good, and Dick Kemper. I played defensive end on defense, and I was fullback on offense, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good players. All the prep league had good players because post grads were accepted, and there were a lot of post grads. Every school did it. Collegiate, VES. Woodbury's done it for years. Every school did, and so we'd have guys from TJ come and play basketball that were post grads, and they were good athletes too. And so we had some good teams, but everybody had a good team.
Prep League was really competitive.
Very competitive. Very competitive.
Yeah, by the time I rolled through in the 80s, post-grads were not a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think what happened at St. Christopher's was, we had the boarding department.
Right.
And that went away probably in the mid to upper 70s because there were just a lot of circumstances that go along with boarding.
Right.
And that was a time of change in the United States. We went through the Vietnam War and the anti-war protest, and people were, had different views, where typically most everybody had the same view at St. Christopher's.
Right.
And now there were people that had different views. And not that's all well and good, but things were changing. And then, weed came in, people, that's when weed first started.
Right.
Back then, and all other kinds of stuff. So, St. Christopher's changed. And then I think with the borders going away, I think the post-grads kind of went away, Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about football, but what positions you play in basketball?
I was center at 6'3".
6'3", you were the tallest guy on the team? Or
I had one guy that was probably 6'4", but he played forward, and Paul Harris. And we were really good my junior year with Farrah Alford. Farrah Alford was a kid from Kentucky. He was a boarder, like a lot of kids were, and he could play the game of basketball. And we won the prep league. We had a real good team. We were good. And then my senior year, we didn't have the playmaker that Farrah was. We did fine, but it wasn't to championship quality like we were when he was here.
Well, you were playing center because you're 6'3", one of the taller kids on the team, but you, I imagine, were pretty physical inside too.
Yeah, I was 6'3", 240.
That's a big kid in high school.
At high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty big for back then.
I was going to say, I was 6'3", 195.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference between 240 and 195, especially at that age.
We had that guy, David Harper, who was a teammate of mine. He was 6'3", 250. And he was a whale of an athlete.
Wow, yeah.
And whale of an athlete. And, I mean, we'd rough him up. He'd come in the middle, you go pay.
Yeah. You got to make them think about it before they do it another time. Yeah.
That's right.
All right, so in football, you got to run for speed against this other kid who sounds like the other kid ended up playing line.
No, the other kid he ended up playing, I don't know, he might have, no, he wasn't, no, he was a running back. He wasn't going to play line.
Oh, okay.
He was probably 6'1", 180. So he
nowhere near your size.
He wasn't going to play line. But I guess when I was a sophomore, when that happened, I was probably, 220, 225.
You were a big kid.
Yeah.
Just naturally big, or were you working out a lot?
I always was.
Yeah. You have a frame of a bigger guy.
Yeah. Shrunk, though.
Yeah, well, it happens to all of us.
I know, exactly.
All right, so you ended up playing fullback throughout high school.
Yeah.
Your senior year, I think you scored how many touchdowns? Do you not remember?
25, maybe?
It was 20-something.
Well, it was 20-something. I don't know. Well, Herzog told Lewis Powell, the quarterback, he said, just hand it to Pratt, get out of the way. That's what Lewis tells me. But Lewis was a good quarterback, and but we had some real good speed in the backfield. A guy named Jeffers was a tailback, and he could run. Like he was the fastest guy on the team, and he could run. And then we had a good team. We got smoked in the championship game because we were missing about 6 or 7 starters.
They were sick or something?
All got hurt. We were missing 3 linemen. We were missing 3 of our starting offensive line, missing our quarterback. Lewis was hurt. We had a bunch of people hurt.
Yeah, it's hard to win when
we got smoked.
Yeah,
but that's part of it.
Do you remember who you played?
Yeah, VES. Up at VES in the city stadium up there in Lynchburg.
You had to drive over 2 hours to lose.
To get our asses kicked. But, it's part of it.
What was the offense y'all ran back then?
It was just a basic offense, a tight end, 2 wide receivers, and, fullback and a halfback.
Did y'all run most of the time?
Most of the whole time. Threw a few passes, not many, maybe 8 or 10 a game, if that.
Yeah, it's not fun for the quarterback to only throw 8 or 10 times.
Get out of the way, Lewis.
So when you got a handoff, were you just running guys over, or were you making moves or both?
I wish, how you wish you could go back and you know what you know now. If you could have known then, I could have been a lot better if I would have just stayed a lot lower. I ran upright.
Right.
And the coaches kept telling me, bend down, get down low. They won't be able to tackle you. And they tried forever. And, I just, for some reason, I ran pretty upright. And, but it didn't make that much difference.
I was going to say, the first kid that hit you probably didn't bring you down usually.
No, not usually.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was fun. And high school football is about the best time as you're going to have if having a good team and doing well.
Right.
It gets serious once.
It's a job once you get to college.
Once you go to college, it gets different than when you're in the pros. It's a real job.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk about college and pros, but back to high school real quickly. When did you know that you were going to play in college? How old were you?
I started getting letters as a sophomore.
Okay.
North Carolina started recruiting when I was a sophomore, and probably 4 or 5 others and just opening the door. And then as a junior, they started coming in, and then by the time you're a senior, you're making all the trips, the official visits, and that's a pretty fun thing to do, on these official visits.
Yeah,
back then,
you're leaving home and you're spending the weekend there.
Yeah,
right?
One of the most memorable ones was went to UT, went to Tennessee, and we played a Friday game, and then we flew out Friday afternoon after the game, and went to Knoxville. And I'll never forget this as, high school kid. I walk into this dorm at University of Tennessee, and this place was huge and all orange and white. Had a fishbowl, 30 feet long and 20 feet high, all orange and white fish. And then so you go in there, and they tell you where you're staying, and then they hand you a book and say, pick out your date for the weekend. a loose leaf binder of girls. And I'm going, it's pretty sweet, and then they said, oh yeah, there's the field behind the field house here. There's a bunch of cars. Just go pick out a car you want, But it was fun, and we got to sit on the sideline for the game, and Hacksaw Reynolds was their big star on defense. No one would know who he is, but
he played for the Rams, right?
Yeah, he did.
I remember Hacksaw.
Yeah, and but it was a fun weekend. It really was. And then I made some other trips, but I kind of made up my mind on Carolina, because they were coming on strong. Bill Dooley was like his second or third year, and they were winning, and they were going to a bowl game, and they were coming on, and they were heavily recruiting me, and So it was close to home, and I just I kind of made up my mind early on that.
Any Virginia schools recruit you?
Yeah, Virginia Tech, Jerry Claiborne. Didn't want to go there, although I love Tech. I think Tech is a fabulous school. I root for them. I've rooted for them for a long time. But he had kind of a reputation. I remember watching them play Alabama in City Stadium one time.
Oh, wow.
Years ago. And UVA really came to the party late. I liked UVA, beautiful school, but they kind of came to the party late, and I already kind of made my mind up. And there are a lot of other schools, but I kind of, when the commitment day came, letter of intent day, I was ready to sign with Chapel Hill.
And no regrets.
Oh, not at all. I'll tell you one thing, Paul. Back then, you couldn't play as a freshman. You had to be on the freshman team. And we had 5 games. And so the rest of the time we were just fodder for the varsity. We had to run the other team's plays, and they beat the crap out of us. And I'll never forget this. The very first scrimmage, it was in Keenan Stadium, and we'd been at practice, a week in the summer, and we were practicing with the varsity, and we have a scrimmage the first Saturday after a week being there, and we had to scrimmage the varsity. Here, freshman scrimmages.
Yeah, 22-year-olds and 23-year-olds playing 18 and 19-year-olds.
Yeah, and so the very first play, I was fullback, and the tailback was behind me, and they run a play, and this linebacker named Mike Webster, who was a whale of a linebacker, came through and hit the halfback and broke his leg. And I'm going, what the hell have I gotten myself into? This guy was a beast, Mike Webster. And he coached for Carolina not that long ago, and assistant coach. And so anyway, we go through the day, and then in the third quarter, I break this run for about 35 yards. I go, hell, I got this job locked up. So come Monday, next thing I know, I'm not first team anymore. I'm like second team. Then on Tuesday, I'm like third team. Then the coach comes to me on it was Tuesday after practice, says, Robert, we're moving you to line. And by the way, you're starting at guard Friday night. So I went from starting quarterback on Saturday to starting left guard the following Friday against NC State.
Well, for the varsity team.
No,
for the freshman team.
For the freshman club. And, I had to trade my 2-bar face mask in for a cage, man. That was a sad point in my life.
Why did they do that to you?
Well, because I was 245.
Right. 6'3",
245, and I was as big as a lot of the linemen. And so, and I, could run, and they moved me to line. And that was the right thing to do, because the last thing you want to do is be a fullback at Chapel Hill, because all we did was run the ball. And so it's like being a guard in the backfield.
You're a guard, you're just starting from a different place.
Yeah, I played tackle. I played left tackle at Chapel Hill. But, it was the best thing that happened. And, I started as a sophomore, so started 3 years, so it was good.
So left guard, you're on the blind side. You're protecting the quarterback's blind side on that side, plus you're pulling a lot. And so...
Well, I was left tackle at Chapel Hill.
Oh, for the varsity team.
Yeah. And so... But we never passed the ball. It was high diddle diddle.
You weren't protecting anybody.
It was high diddle diddle. We're coming up the middle. That was Bill Dooley's mantra. And we ran. It was very similar to St. Christopher's. We ran all but maybe 8, 9, 10 passes a game, if that.
Oh my goodness!
We were good. We were good.
So you were 3-point stance the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was no such thing as a 2-point stance back then.
No, not at all. And But we had a good line, and the interesting thing about this, Paul, is the first game as a sophomore, we played in City Stadium. We played Richmond, U of R. And it was Barty Smith was the fullback, and then a guy from St. Christopher's, Clayton Sisson, was, I think he was playing defense. He played offense and defense in St. Christopher. Big guy, and so we played in City Stadium, and the whole starting offensive line was from Richmond.
Really?
And they did that. Now this next game, it wasn't the whole Richmond. They did it for recruiting purposes.
Right.
But they were good players. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it ended up being 3 starters started the whole year from Richmond. Richmond was a huge recruiting place for Chapel Hill back then, and now it's become too, because that receiver from St. Christopher's is going to Chapel Hill.
The all-world kid.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. And they recruited a lot in Virginia, up in Roanoke and all that. But it was we had good offensive line, good coaches, tough. My line coach played for Bear Bryant at Texas A&M when Bryant came in to coaching, and he was one of, I think they call him the Junction Gang. I think there were only 7 or 8 or 10 that made it through all the first 3 years or 4 years of Bear Bryant. He was a tough son of a gun.
Well, I was going to ask you, 2 days at Carolina, I'm very curious what that was like, summer camp, getting ready for the season. But Bear Bryant was known as being a really tough guy in the summer right before the season, to the point like he wouldn't let him drink water.
I mean, there were coaches that did that. No water.
I mean, I think looking back now, we're like, kids need to be hydrated.
Well, on a sad note, it was my junior year. I think it was, no. It was my sophomore year, and it was Labor Day weekend, and we were down there. It was about 95 degrees, and it rained and humid as hell.
Right.
And anyway, there was a teammate died
During practice.
Yeah. And we got a water break, but it wasn't like it is right after that. You got water whenever you wanted it, and that's the way it ought to be.
Right.
Instead of making you tougher and biting the head off a mouse or something. But physiology has changed, and the more water, obviously, the better. But it was a sad day when that happened, and so it changed everything, all of football around the country, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, as it should have, and obviously we know a lot more today than we knew back then. I still to this day don't understand the toughness thing. Are you really making kids tougher by not giving them water? It doesn't make sense.
We didn't get water when I first went to Seattle. The coach wouldn't let us have water. And I'm going, what the? And it was 100.
And this is in the 80s.
This is in the 80s. This is in Spokane, Washington, where it was 105, and we couldn't have water. He said, take a lot of salt pills. But anyway, that guy didn't last long. He got fired.
I was going to say, if he's doing that in the 80s, you probably need to get fired.
I know.
That's crazy. So summer camp, walk me through what a summer camp was like before your junior year or your senior year at UNC.
Well, the thing that every day, you started off after calisthenics and all that stuff, was one-on-one on the boards. Every day. And against the defense. And we do one-on-ones. And the defensive guys knew the snap count because, they know how to communicate, And So every day you'd have these just beat each other like a bunch of,
Just smashing into each other.
Just smashing into each other. And so we used to get these holes in our foreheads because the helmets we had back then were basically just Army helmets, suspension helmets.
Yeah.
Not near what, by Miles was senior, the helmets had totally changed. But our foreheads, you could always tell the linemen because they always had 2 holes in their foreheads from hitting.
From where the screws were.
Exactly. And after the first hit, the blood comes pouring down your face. It just poured down your face. And then it just starts rubbing. And I'll never forget that same coach. I'm walking back in with him, and I said, man, the only thing bad about this, coach, is, it rubs so raw. When that water from the shower hits it, it stings like a son of a gun. And he looked at me and says, don't you just love that feeling? And I went, man, these guys are screwed up. He looked at me and said, don't you just love that? This is a guy that made it through with Bear Bryant.
Right.
Oh, gosh. That hurt so much you'd put your hand over your forehead so you wouldn't get water on it.
Oh, man.
But at the summer practices, once you became a starter, just like in any sport, it's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, our coaches in the pros used to go, people pay to go to places like this, guys. You're getting 3 good meals a day. You're getting exercise. You're getting massages. They ought to call this spa, except for the headaches you get the first week you're there.
Man.
The one time I will remember at Chapel Hill, we lost a game, and as a freshman, you can't lose. And we lost a game, and I'll never forget, Dooley looked at our freshman coach as the varsity was walking off on Monday. It's pretty light practice on Monday, and he looked over at the freshman coach and said, "Coach, run them till their eyes roll back."
And you heard that? Everybody heard
it? Yeah. And the varsity left the field, walked back to the locker room, changed their clothes, walked over to our dorm, went to the training table, ate dinner, came up and were on the rails, and we were still running.
And they just wanted to watch.
They were looking at us and waving, and that guy ran us. And this was one thing about being a lineman. I could run, so I was running with the linemen, and these guys were falling out, and I was used to running. And we had one guy, he just ran through a fence and collapsed. I mean, he was faking it. He just wanted to, but he ran us for 45 minutes. Right?
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. Running till their eyes roll back. I'll never forget that. But
that same mindset says don't get water during practice. What game do you look back most fondly on it? Your time at UNC?
At UNC? Oh, there were a lot of them. I guess we beat Florida at Florida. That was a real good win. There were a lot of good games. Let's see. We were good. I remember losing, though. I remember losing to Notre Dame. I remember losing to a pretty good story as we were, my junior year, we were really good. And we went up to Ohio State, and we were beating them at halftime.
Y'all weren't supposed to be beating them. Okay.
No, we were not. And we were beating them at halftime, and then Woody Hayes, who was the coach back then, he goes down the line of players and picks out a running back. Says, "You go in and play." And this kid went in and played, and he ran for 225 yards in the second half.
Oh, my gosh.
Archie Griffin. That was
Who won the Heisman twice?
That was his first game, and they ended up beating us. We scored in the very last play of the game to beat the point spread. That's all I remember, because the next day in Chapel Hill they were pissed at us because we beat the point spread. I go, why are you betting against us?
Right.
You know, but that was our only loss. We were.
Oh, y'all were 11-1 that year.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
We were in the top 10.
That's awesome.
We finished 10th or 11th or something. We were good.
Who else was on that team that people might know?
Well, it was Paul Miller was a quarterback. It was Bob Thornton, Jerry Sane, Ron Rusnak, who was from Prince George, who was All-American. We had Mike Mansfield, who's a linebacker. We had a good group of players. We had some Canadians, Hamlin, but it was a good team.
Carolina had reach into Canada.
We had three Canadians, and they were tough.
Wow,
They were tough.
I didn't know that. I'm not trying to be funny. I didn't know they played football back then in Canada.
I don't know. These guys came down. Hamlin, not Denny Hamlin. He's a race car driver. Hamlin was his last name. Then we had we used to call the guy Canuck, Dale Craig. He was my class, and he was a lineman. But they got a few. I don't know how they got them, you know. But majority of them were North Carolina and Virginia, and up in New York on Long Island. A lot of like Don McCauley.
Right.
Don McCauley was one of the best running backs we had down there, and a lot of Long Island guys they recruited.
That's a little strange for back then for Carolina, I would think.
There were a lot of people from Long Island. I mean, Virginia had Dan Quayle. Remember that? You might not remember that name, but he was from Long Island. So evidently, I guess they played lacrosse. Who knows? But we had good players, mainly North Carolina, Virginia, Long Island, and obviously some recruits from international recruits.
That's right. When did you think the NFL was a possibility?
My senior year.
Really, not until your senior year.
Well, early senior year, my coaches came up to me and said, you're going to get drafted. I said, well, good. I got a business degree. There was me and one other fellow, Lamb, and we both got business degrees in 4 years. I think we were the only ones that did it, without summer school. So I was there for an education. And, because I didn't have any idea I was going to play. I didn't have aspirations as a kid to play in the NFL. I used to love watching Johnny Unitas and the Colts,
Sure.
But I didn't grow up saying, I got to make the NFL. I went to college planning on getting a degree and coming home and working.
Right.
And then, things, turned out differently. Much to my enjoyment, but my senior year is when I knew.
Yeah. So back then, what was the draft like, or what was the process leading up to the draft like for you?
Well, you had to they'd come to you and you'd have to run, and we would go over to Woolen Field, which was right off from the practice field at Chapel Hill, and you'd have some scouts there. You might have 4 or 5 scouts, and they'd ask for certain players to run, and they'd time you, and then some of the teams, Dallas made you take IQ test, and then I thought I was going to get drafted by Dallas. They came to town the night before the draft, or 2 days before the draft, and they wined and dined me and all my roommates. We were all seniors, and so we'd go out and I said, "Can I bring my friends?" He said, "Yeah." So all my roommates, I had 3 different roommates. And we go out with every night. We go eat steak, and he took us to a Muhammad Ali pay-per-view match over in Raleigh. We had a ball. And then the day of the draft, they picked me up and took me to a hotel room, and with one other guy, and it was either going to be him or me. And obviously they drafted him. And he was a running back from NC State, and he didn't make it. I don't know whether he got hurt or whatever, but he didn't make it. But he was a good guy. I wished him luck. And so then I get drafted by the Colts, and they just call you on the phone. And the Dallas guy the scout goes, okay, I can't remember the fellow's name that they drafted first. And he goes, we got to go. We're going to Dallas. Eat what you want and just close the door when you leave. They're like, see you later. We don't need you anymore. So I said, okay. No, but and then.
But you were a Colts fan growing up.
I was.
So that was a huge.
It was close to Richmond, and so go up to had to play in a bunch of senior games, bowl games. And the funny thing about it was I played in the Senior Bowl, and so it was one team had Alabama red, one team had white. So I got a red helmet, and so I go to the Colts summer camp, rookie camp, and they didn't have a helmet big enough for me. So they said, bring your college helmet. And now my college helmet's been painted red because of the Senior Bowl.
Right.
And so these friends of mine, my teammates, they'd look over there, who's that big son of a bitch in the red helmet over there? I mean, because the Colts helmets are white with a blue horseshoe.
Right.
And I stood out like a sore thumb, and that was a strike year, so it was only rookies in camp. And we had 5 offensive linemen. And so every play that was run, we had to do it. And there was a friend of mine who said, screw this, I'm out of here. And the coach said, please don't leave. We got to have at least 5. You can leave as soon as something. So then they pressured a guy that was a rookie the year before, pressured him to come in. And so once he came in, they told him, you can go ahead and go now. But we had 5 offensive linemen, and that was for basically a month. It was rookie camp was a bitch.
I bet
it was a bitch. But you didn't hit. We didn't do one-on-one run blocking drills like we did at Carolina. All we did was, one-on-ones on the boards. In the pros, all you do is one-on-one pass blocking. That's all you do, besides your other stuff. But they did very rarely. I can count on one hand the number of times we did one-on-one run blocking.
You were an investment at that point, right? They didn't. Yeah. I guess they didn't want to.
They figured if you couldn't run block here, I mean, you've already proven that. But pass blocking is where the rubber hits the road.
Were you drafted as a left tackle or just?
I was left guard.
Okay.
They moved me to guard. I wasn't tall enough to be a tackle. You had to be 6'5".
Even back then, you had to be super tall.
6'4", 6'5".
Yeah.
The best tackles were 6'5".
That's huge back then.
Yeah, I was a little over 6'3", my 247. That was my first weight for the Colts, and I was a little heavier than the average.
Wow.
247.
And today a left guard is
315, 320, probably another 100, 80 pounds.
Wow.
You could 6'3" is fine, but you need to put on 80 pounds. But yeah, I mean, I was normal size, and then as the years rolled on, the defensive lineman got big. Occasionally, I'd play against a big son of a bitch. There was a guy for the New York Jets, Carl Barzolaskis. This guy, I think he went to Boston College. I can't remember exactly, but he was like 6'4", 5'6", 300.
And that was massive back then.
Huge, but he was ridiculous. He was terrible.
So he was easy.
He was easy. I mean, he couldn't move. He was a big behemoth, but he couldn't move.
Yeah, so he plugged up the A gaps, but that was about it.
But back, as I said, everything but pass blocking.
Right.
You know, and he was easy to pass block. We used to call them suitcase players. You want to put them in your suitcase and take them with you every week so you can play against them every week. The Jets were like that. The Jets were terrible back then. Joe Namath's last 3 years.
Right.
He was done. And if you got within 2 yards of him, he'd jump on the ground. He'd lay on the ground.
He had bad knees at the end.
Bad isn't a word for him. Yeah, the Jets weren't much.
Who was on your team that first year or two for the Colts?
In Baltimore, I had a great team. My buddy Burt Jones was the quarterback, LSU. Don McCauley, you know, he was with me in Chapel. Well, he was a senior when I was a freshman at Chapel Hill. David Taylor was my left tackle. Kenny Mendenhall was the center. Elmer Collette was the right guard, and George Kuntz, who was a perennial All-Pro from Notre Dame. He was 6'5.5", 270, 280, and he was good.
Yeah,
we had very good teams.
Who were your receivers back then?
Roger Carr.
Oh yeah,
remember Roger?
Sure.
He's from Louisiana. He and Burt teamed up. Raymond Chester was tight end. Let's see, who else did we have? I'm drawing a blank. Had a guy named Mike Ciani. I'm trying to think of Shake and Bake. Dowdy, Glenn Dowdy. He was good. He was good wide receiver. We had good receivers, and we had a great defense. Sack pack. My first year wasn't much. We went 2-12 or 2-12.
Yeah, it was 14 games back then.
2-12,
Yeah.
and then the next year we went. Was 14 games with 10-4 and won the division.
That's quite a turnaround.
Yes, we won the division.
Yeah.
And we got a new coach. They fired my rookie year. They fired my line coach during the preseason.
You got to really screw up to get fired in the preseason.
Well, he
like that.
ended up being George Young. He was the general manager of the Giants, and they won the Super Bowl under his management. This guy knew football, but you know, our owner in Baltimore was pretty much a buffoon. You know, Ursay, and
The same family that still owns them, right?
yeah, who owns it now, is a good guy. I like Jimmy. He was there the whole time I was there. He was 16 years old, and he was a ball boy, and he was a nice guy. He had to grow up fast because of the actions of his father. But Jimmy, I like Jimmy, and everybody did. And Burt kind of took him under his wing. You know, Burt Jones really helped Jimmy, and they're still very good friends. You know. So, but
y'all used to come to St. Christopher's when you were with the Colts in the summers.
we used to have. I had a camp, Kemper. We had a football camp. I brought in so many players, and then Dick, we had to quit it because all the other coaches were accusing him of recruiting.
Oh.
You know, bringing all these
bringing
stars.
the Colts to town, yeah.
Burt was here. We had a ball. I mean, Washington Redskins, you know, a lot of friends that I got to know from, you know, when you play in a lot of these charity events and you meet people, golf tournaments, and so I'd ask them to come down and they'd do it. And at St. Christopher's, it was good, but all the other coaches in the area got mad at Dick, so we had to quit doing it.
Well, you don't know this, but Burt Jones and I spent 10 minutes together talking because I was the quarterback my senior year for St. Christopher's, and I think the camp had ended by that point, but you had brought Burt to town because y'all were buddies, and he asked to talk to the quarterback, and I'll never forget that. I got to talk to Burt Jones near the training room right there at St. Christopher's. It was awesome. Because I was a huge fan of his before I got to meet him.
What did he teach you?
I don't remember what we talked about. That's a great question. I should remember. I think I was starstruck when I talked to him.
Yeah, he probably didn't remember a thing he said.
I don't think I remembered anything.
Yeah, I just got back from hunting with him out in Louisiana and Texas. We're still, see each other a couple times a year.
My impression is he's a great guy.
He and I are dear friends, and a lot of people don't know this, but his father is still tied has the most touchdowns in a game. He scored 6 touchdowns in one game. His dad for the Cleveland Browns.
Was he a running back?
Wide receiver.
Oh wow, that's a lot back then.
6 touchdowns. It's been tied. Someone tied it, and yeah.
That's a lot of touchdowns.
No kidding. In the pros,
that's a lot for a team in a game.
Yeah,
much less one guy.
And they weren't. Maybe he was a running back. They weren't 1-yard plunges.
Right.
They were 40-yard runs, 60-yard catches. Out of the backfield. I mean, they were legitimate touchdowns, not just 3 yards and a cloud of dust. But yeah, he's got his dad. His dad's still alive. So is his mom, and. Got a good athletic family, obviously.
Yeah. 2 generations in the NFL. I'd say that's athletic.
Yeah,
that's cool. And y'all hunted. What were you hunting?
Well, we duck hunted in Louisiana, and I've been hunting down there since the mid '70s with him, and a lot of players would come down there, and we had some fun. We had a blast, and then we quail hunting out in West Texas on horseback.
Oh, nice.
Which is fun.
Oh, that sounds like
it's just
blast. Yeah.
2 of us, and we get to, spend 3 or 4 days together, and because, you don't get to do that very often.
Right.
We try to do it once a year.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it is. It's good.
That's a fantastic tradition. What was the best team you played on in Baltimore? Do you remember?
77. That was the year we should have won. We had the best offense in the league. Burt was MVP of the league. We lost to the Oakland Raiders in double overtime on Christmas Eve. And we lost a key integral part of the defensive secondary, and they had to put a rookie in, and he got beat twice. And once to tie the game, and then once for them to kick a field goal to beat us. But we should have been in the Super Bowl that year. We were a good team. We were real good. And then typically what happens, 77 was all our 3rd and 4th year, so what comes up? Contracts.
Right.
And when you have the whole team coming up for contract renewal, it's there's a lot of disgruntled players who don't come to camp. Things start falling apart a little bit.
It's hard to keep it together.
It is, and it was easier back then because there wasn't a free agency. Now you can leave,
right?
And that's what happened. They got salary cap now, so you can't just go buy everybody. But as George Coons told me, you can paint a sampan on my helmet and pay me in yen. If the money's right, I'm out of here. Paint a sampan on my helmet and pay me in yen. I'll never forget that. But there wasn't much movement with players. There wasn't.
Were you making a decent living back then?
Oh, it was good. I mean, people say, "Don't you wish you were making?" Of course, you make $8 million a year,
right?
But it was good. It was great. I had older players come up to me. Ken Willard came up to me one time and says, "God, you guys are making so much money compared,
Because Ken's from here too.
Ken
running back for the Niners, right?
Oh yeah. Ken was great running back for the 49ers. And he came up to me and says, "Y'all make so much money." And he was a star.
He was a star.
He was a star for the 49ers out of Verona.
Yep.
With Chapel Hill. And so it's all relative. We made a good living.
Were y'all lifting a lot of weights when you came in the league?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning, no. Yes. Going forward, I worked out heavily because I had to gain weight. And Bob Blanton, he was my strength coach. And I'll never forget, we would lift. I got to where my best was 405.
That's a lot of weight.
For me, it's
a lot of weight for anybody.
But Blanton, it was all because of Blanton, the way we trained. He'd put 500 pounds on there, and all you had to do was lift it 2 inches. He says, you got to get your tendon strong enough to hold it. And I'd take, a bunch of weight just a couple inches up, but it was, lifting weights was totally time consuming. You had to do it.
And Bob knew what he was doing.
Oh, heck yeah, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He was excellent.
Very cool. So how long did you play for the Colts?
8 years with the Colts.
8 seasons with the Colts.
Yeah.
And then you got traded?
Yeah.
You got traded to the Seahawks because there was no free agency back then.
No, all hell broke loose after my last year. We were 2-14 that year, and we won the first game of the year. We beat New England at New England, and then we lost 14 in a row. And it got dark there, and. The last game of the season against New England.
So you beat New England.
No,
and
in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And so whoever lost this game would get the number 1 draft choice. So we were so pissed off at Irsay, that gave us incentive to win it. So I'll never forget this, Paul. 17,500 people were at that game for a pro game. Now it was cold, windy, and it was. I'll never forget that game. Oh, it was hilarious, and we ended up beat them badly, and because we played New England twice a year, and they were good too. During our stretch, they were excellent.
Right. It
was either us or New England, or Miami is kind of going down, but it was either us or New England who win the division, and we knew all the players, played against them twice a year, so you knew everybody. They were a good group of guys. But so anyway, the point I'm making, they fired everybody. So they brought in a new coach. They brought in Frank Cush from Arizona State.
Yep.
And he didn't want anybody over 30 years old on the team.
And you had just hit 30.
Yeah. So he was like, everybody's out of here. And so one quick story. We had a mini camp, and he wanted to test us on how many pull-ups we could do. And so I was the elder statesman on the line. So we had this one guy, Ray Donaldson, who was a whale of a ball player. And he went to Georgia. And I think he played 15, 16 years in the pros. And he was built like a brick shit house. And so I said, Ray, as many as I do, that's all you do. No one does more than what I do.
No one does more than the old man.
Yeah, and so I got up, I don't know, I did 8 or 9, which was pretty good. And Ray got up there and just whipped off 8 or 9, just boom, 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 boom. He hopped off, and Cush goes, "You think you had any more in you?"
He had probably 8 or 9
all done,
more.
Coach. All done. But it was a fiasco with Frank Cush. I think he lasted a year or two. But I got to go to Seattle, which was fabulous.
Yeah, you loved your time out there.
Oh, fabulous. The Nordstrom family, unbelievable. Own Nordstrom Department Store.
Right.
Couldn't have been the antithesis of Ursay. I mean, these guys were first class. They treated us unbelievably well. Beautiful locker. I mean, it was a great. And we ended up. It was a strike year. We played like 6 or 7 games. Then we had a strike, and then we came back and played 5 or something or 6. And after we came back, they fired the coach that was there when I first got there, Jack Patera, and my last coach in Baltimore, Mike McCormick, went to Seattle as a GM, but he was the head coach for the after the strike for the 5 games.
Right.
And so then he brought in Chuck Knox, and that's when everything changed, man. We were good.
Chuck was a good coach.
Yeah,
he's a really good
ground
coach.
Chuck, and back to running again.
Yeah,
ground Chuck.
Who was your quarterback?
It started off as Jim Zorn, and he was kind of at the end, and Dave Craig.
Okay.
Dave Craig was top notch.
And was Largent on those teams?
Oh yeah, Steve and I were good friends, very good friends.
Unbelievable receiver, unbelievable.
Great guy too.
Yeah,
great guy. Couldn't ask for a better teammate, and he and Largent were inseparable because all they did was work on timing every day, all day. So, they were great teammates. Jim was great guy. Good leader, Jim Zorn was, and but David Craig had the arm. Jim didn't have the arm that David Craig did, but he and Largent hooked up so well because of their timing.
Right.
But Dave Craig was excellent. We had Kurt Warner as a running back. We had a good team.
Yeah.
We went to the AFC Championship game. We had to go to Miami and play Dan Marino in the Orange Bowl, and the darndest thing, from Seattle to Miami, that's about as far as you can fly.
That is the farthest you can fly, yeah.
And we went to the airport to fly to the game, and our plane broke. So we didn't get into Miami till like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning.
The day of the game?
No,
the day before.
The day before the game.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so we still kind of stuck to the same schedule. We wouldn't have had a workout, but we go into Miami and whoop them. Largent, I don't think had caught a pass. Anyway, when end of the game when it mattered, he made a touchdown reception, and we ended up beating them. It was a great win.
Largent caught everything.
Oh, he didn't drop any.
Yeah. He
was good. And great routes. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
You know, Largent, Kupp's probably got better speed, but Largent could run precise patterns, and no one, how can this happen, these defensive backs, you know? But Largent was very disciplined, very smart, and practiced diligently with his quarterback, so they were on the same page.
Were you how bummed out were you when you retired?
I wasn't bummed out.
You were ready to go?
Oh, heck yeah.
Your body had said,
well,
we've had enough.
It was just, I was just tired of it. I was 35.
Yeah.
And I was just tired of it. And Ernie Accorsi, who was our general manager in Baltimore, called me up and asked me to come play for Cleveland 2 more years. And because the line coach at Cleveland at that point was my first line coach in Seattle, Howard Mudd. And Howard Mudd went to the Colts.
He's still coaching, isn't he?
I think he retired.
Okay.
Yeah, he had to retire. And he coached Indy with Peyton Manning and Jeff Saturday. Remember him, center?
Sure.
Who's on Sports Center now. But Howard went to Cleveland, so he wanted me to come. He wanted me to play 2 more years, and that was with when they lost those games to Elway, where Banner fumbled.
Yeah, they were good back then.
They were real good.
Yeah.
and was it Bernie Kosar?
Kosar was a quarterback, yeah.
And we would have made it to the AFC Championship game. But I'd had enough. I just had enough. It was these young kids. I just couldn't believe I just couldn't believe them.
Yeah, were they stronger and faster?
Well, they were. Yeah, I was playing against. My last year, we were playing the Raiders, and I'm playing against what's his name? I'm playing against a tackle for the Raiders who's about 320 pounds, and he wasn't bad. And I'm going, holy smokes! On pass protection, you're never supposed to be aggressive. You're always set, and you get your hands on him. And this guy, I couldn't. If I sat, he would drive me back. I'm going, holy smokes! So I had to change everything that I was taught not to do. I had to be aggressive just to stop his momentum.
Right.
This guy was huge. And so I'm holding the hell out of him. And so that night my elbow starts hurting so badly. And so every Monday the orthopedic would be in the training room. And so I went in early to let the orthopedic look at my elbow. And he starts fooling around and touching and doing this. And he goes, were you holding yesterday? Hell, I said, hell yeah, I was holding on for dear life. He goes, you got tennis elbow. And I said, if I'm getting tennis elbow from playing football, I'm done. And that was one of the reasons I said, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
I was going to get hurt because I just couldn't get any heavier. I got up to like 270, 278. And so I came home and I thought about doing steroids because everybody did steroids. Not everybody, but a lot of people did. And I talked to this neurologist, and I said, what about these steroids? I mean, can I do it for a year or two to gain 20 or 30 pounds, which you can do?
Right.
And he came back and said, I wouldn't do that. He says, they don't know the long-term effects of it. And just for a year or so, who knows what it'll do to you later on in life. So I didn't do it. And I saw a lot of players, Lyle Alzado, and that guy. I played against Lyle his whole career, and he came across as a badass, enforcer, but underneath he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
But he put on this persona. I mean, he was done. He was at Denver, and then he went to Cleveland. He was done. And then he went to L.A. and he found some magic potion out there that got him going. I mean, he never blinked for the first half when he played, but and he passed away from it. And then the whole offensive line from the Steelers, had a lot of problems.
Right.
So steroids were prevalent, but anyway, I didn't do it. I know a lot of people that did.
Well, it's a good decision. It was smart to talk to a neurologist, get his opinion about it, right? All right. Who'd y'all play in the NFC Championship? Or y'all were AFC back then with Seattle?
AFC.
Y'all were AFC West back then.
Played the Raiders.
Okay. Yeah,
and we beat them twice. It's hard to beat a good team. They lost 5 games, and we beat them twice. And they had our number in that third game.
But it was at Seattle. Was the game at?
It was in L.A.
It
was screwy. Denver, us, and Raiders were the 3 best teams in the AFC.
And you're all in the same division.
And we're all in the same division. Yeah. And the way it worked, we beat the Raiders. Denver would beat us. The way it worked out, we had to play in L.A. They couldn't beat us. They never beat us in Seattle. They could never beat us.
The fans were awesome back then, too, right?
Awesome. The Kingdom, loud. Raiders could never beat us, and never did in Seattle. But they had our number, and that was the year they went and they beat the Redskins in the Super Bowl.
The Marcus Allen run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have played against my buddy Ken Huff, who I went to Chapel Hill with, who was a year behind me. He got drafted by the Colts, and he was the other guard. So, and he got traded from the Colts a year after I did. He went to the Redskins. So he played on the line with some of those Hogs were getting older, but he went to the Super Bowl. So
And he was a hog, technically.
he was.
Yeah.
He was.
All right, I'm going to switch gears on you.
Okay.
You now have your own talk show. You're the host. You get to invite 3 people. A male guest, a female guest, and you can pick a comedian or musical person or music group. They can be alive, they can be dead, they can be people you know, people you don't know, famous, not famous, it's up to you. Who's going to be on your talk show?
Oh my goodness. I would have to say, let's see. Who is the girl in Dynasty?
Oh, shoot. I know exactly what you're talking about. Was her name Priscilla?
No. Not Diane.
Oh, Dynasty. You're talking about Dynasty. Sorry. I was thinking Dallas.
No. I used to like Heather Locklear.
Linda Evans.
Linda Evans. Okay. Linda or Heather Locklear.
Those are 2 good choices.
Yeah. Or Ursula Andress. Let's see. Golly. Well, I think Jagger would be pretty cool.
So he's your music guy.
Yeah, he's my music guy. Rolling Stones, I like. Now, I'm a big Motown guy too. David Ruffin. You can't beat that. And and who would I like to talk to? Well, who would have been interesting to sit down with would be George Patton.
Very interesting.
I'd love to sit.
He lived a lot of lives, right?
Yeah, he was a badass. Got himself in trouble, but he was quite a leader.
He knew how to win wars. He knew how to lead military men.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a great choice. I love that choice.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, let's end with talking about your family. Tell me about your family.
I have 2 daughters and a son. 4 grandchildren, 2 boys, 2 girls. My son has 2 boys. My daughter has 2 girls. Totally different kids, but they're both 4 and 2 and 4 and 2 on both sides.
That's fun.
My youngest daughter is a junior at Chapel Hill, where my other 2 kids went. It really
they all went to Chapel Hill.
Yeah, it wasn't really fair to this my last one, Carolyn, because it put so much pressure on her going down to all her brothers and sisters' games,
right?
And going down there, and then it's hard to get into,
right?
It's hard.
It's very hard to get into.
Yeah,
out of state especially. Yeah,
and but she's having a good year this year, great year this year, compared with COVID last year. So everything's good. My wife is Jane, and she's a go-getter. She's working on a water purification product right now and a project. So everything's good.
Staying busy.
Yeah,
your wife is.
My wife is very busy.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's why she don't want me around the house bothering her. She's busy.
What are the names of all 3 kids? Carolyn's the youngest.
Carolyn is the youngest. Liz is my middle daughter, and then Beau is my son. His name is Robert. We call him Beau.
Yeah, because you're Robert.
Yeah. Be too many Roberts.
All right, right on. Do you have any fun plans coming up?
Nothing right now. I just got back from a little trip down south, which was great. I go with some buddies and we play golf. Pinehurst and different places. Once the weather gets a little better, everything's good. I'm very happy with the way things are right now.
That's awesome.
Sycamore Creek has had 2 good years. because of COVID.
Right.
You know, and the course is in great shape. Got good people running it, and so it's been good.
Yeah,
It's been
that's
real
awesome.
good.
Well, you look great.
Well, I'm hanging in there.
No, that's awesome. I really do appreciate you coming out.
Well, it was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.